It's the bye week, and we are in full whiteout prep. That's not true. That's not even close to true yet. We're not in whiteout prep yet. But everyone else, here's the thing. That's where I thought we would be. That's where I thought we would be here on a Tuesday, September 16th. But we have significant conversations to have about the Nittany Lions, specifically the offense, but also just like what we've learned from the defense during the non-conference season and trying to make sense of what we've seen from the offense through 3 games. I have some specific thoughts that I've been developing over the last couple of days. I feel like I may have had a breakthrough here in like the last 15 minutes that I'm going to be workshopping live on the show.
That's always good.
So, yeah. No, I think it's pretty good.
I think
it's pretty. Yeah, you did. Now, buried in my mistake there, Nate, was actually still the same point I was making is actually still very much true as opposed to what I was thinking was going on. Anyway, we're going to get to that here on the show. We're going to start by recapping the game and then talking about the larger picture with the Nittany Lions. And Logan, I see your super chat. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to hold off on that for just a little bit because that is getting to the meat of the conversation a little bit later. We will answer that question at some point here in the first 15 or 20 minutes or so. But I just want to say good morning to our esteemed guests here, Sean Fitz, Nate Bauer. Fitz, I'm going to start with you as most prepared person here on the show. How are you doing today?
Wow. I got a bruise here, ducking that low bar. From something else. I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me again on this wonderful Tuesday bye week. Low pressure, low shoulders. We feel okay. We're trying to just get through and think about 2 weeks from now, which is what we've been thinking about for the last 6 months, really, since this schedule came out. So the Oregon game in a couple of weeks. Nate said it best. Wake me up when Oregon's here, and now we're here, and we get to get the full brunt of our little red-faced cherub down there. So I can't wait to hear what he says. I can't wait to hear your workshop in progress, because that talking live is very hard to begin with. Like it seems like it wouldn't be, but it's very hard to do. But thinking and talking live, that's all you, buddy. Have fun with it.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty confident in it because I think I've been thinking about this narrative and this thesis for a little bit, so I just found the information I was looking for. But Nate, the reason I phrased that to Fitz is because as we were coming on air, I just wanted to give you some time to get settled in. That was all. Like, it was not necessary that you were an unprepared individual, but that you just had less time here to get settled in. So how are you feeling here on the show today, a couple days later?
I want you to know that Mitch said hi at Wegmans, and it delayed me a little bit. He wanted to know what I thought of Penn State's chances to go undefeated this year, and that was actually like freeze frame.
So he got your 30-minute 10-2 rant then.
Yeah, I was like, listen, the paradigm has changed. College football is different. I just started there, and then we went.
Can we also circle back around to you saying that UCLA may be tricky on the road?
Which one of us? Because I think we both said that actually.
I remember Nate saying it because it's because your 10-2 rant is you think they're going to lose 2 games, but you don't think it's going to be both Oregon and Ohio State. You think it's going to be one of those other tricky games, and flying to the West Coast to play UCLA.
Yeah,
who Deshaun Foster is gone now, but they just before that just looked absolutely terrible, and now I think their roster is toast because they have not redshirted. It's another year. If anybody wants to go in the portal, they can do that right now. I'm looking at their roster because I think Penn State fans have questions about both Virginia Tech and UCLA rosters, and there's a reason that those guys are both getting fired. There's not a ton of talent on those teams, but I think right now Penn State doing a little performance review of those guys to see if there's anything, because a defensive tackle could play. Derek Angelo played for a bad Duke team, and he was a good player here. You can find guys that play for bad teams. It's just an interesting time point to have it. I believe Pete Nako said that UCLA hasn't even started classes yet because they're in a quarter system. So it's just so many interesting little nuggets that just come out of this whole thing. The most interesting of which is UCLA really bad. Watch them Friday night. They were awful.
And need to remind everyone, sorry to cut you off there, Fitz. Today's show is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Huddle up football fans, tailgate season is here. Beautiful weather on Saturday. Nobody is going to get you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store and shop online at academy.com to find grills, canopies, jerseys, and more. So thanks to them for sponsoring the show. More about them in just a little bit. So let's just dive in. Let's get into Penn State Villanova and how this game played out. Do you guys want to start with the defense? Do you want to go 3 and out with the defense? A quick conversation there, or do we need to like just open the festering wound right away and talk about the offense and everyone's frustration with the Nittany Lions once again not steamrolling, as one person called it, a snowflake at home in the non-conference season? So I will open up to this is a democratic process. I know it says one thing on the rundown, but what do you guys want to do? Nate, what are you yearning for?
I mean, we could get defense out of the way. It'll only take 3 minutes.
That's
They're
what I was
fine.
thinking.
They're fine.
Yeah.
They haven't played an offense yet. So I think that's probably part of the conversation. Listen, look, what do I do if not subscribe to you're never quite as good as you think you are when you pitch multiple shutouts and the offense stinks. Yeah. That's so no, look, they're good. They're really good. They have a lot of talent. I do think that, you know, they'll be tested. Like they haven't played a quarterback that can pass the ball to receivers.
Outside.
That's very true. Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of football at this level against really good teams. And I also think that's something that Oregon does well. So, you know, to be determined, but I do think, and relevantly, that the whole idea of are they getting it was a good conversation to have before the season. I think it was a good conversation through the first couple of games. And I think that even against not good teams and not good offenses, comparatively speaking, you can still show progress in that area. And I think that was pretty much the talking point after the game on Saturday, and that it was backed up by how they performed.
Yeah. Fitz, I want to talk to you about that safety position. King Mac gets the start, plays a lot in that game. Is that Penn State's new starter? Do they now have their duo, or do you think that is something that continues to either rotate or go through even the bye week here as they compete to find out who's going to be the starter for Oregon? How did you view the safety performance in that game, and then kind of what you've seen throughout the first 3 games?
Kind of remarkable, because a different safety other than Zakee Wheatley led Penn State in snaps in each of the weeks. So Belgrave Shorter was first, King Mac was second, and then this weekend Dejon Lane played a ton. So yeah, I don't think that one is as resolved as they'd like it to be in terms of a guy just taking over. You know, I think they've gotten some solid play, but as Nate stated, the test that they've gotten hasn't quite, you know, come up at times. If you think about downfield passing, you think about Zakee Wheatley breaking that one up against FIU. You think about the seam route. I think that was Nevada with Kenny Woosley. With Zion Tracy on the shelf, with Kenny Woosley getting beat down the seam. I think Lane was in there for that play. So I don't think there's anything definitive about how that one has gone, other than I think they're going to play them all. And they've got different strengths, as they've shown. I think that probably Belgrave Shorter and King Mac are probably the two that are jostling for the starting role, you know, if that's going to mean all that much. But yeah, I think they're going to see more of that, just because there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of thinking goes on. And that's why I'm looking at this defense and I'm seeing, yes, the questions on the outside, but I mean, granted, they go up against Penn State every day in practice. So there's plenty of outside work going on there, given how Penn State has chosen to throw the ball earlier in the season. But you're looking at a team like Villanova, understanding they're overmatched, understanding that they're trying to be tricky or trying to get a little misdirection. And you saw some, I don't want to say cracks, but a lot of that misdirection running through the linebackers for a loop, through some of the safeties for a loop. And they had tackling issues because of it, not just, wrapping up with Tony Rojas meeting the guy in the hole, but taking that angle that gets you just a little bit off is how a tackle turns into an arm tackle. And I think that's what you look at Oregon bringing all that speed and bringing all that misdirection, all that kind of stuff that they love to do to town. I think that's where you could see sort of the cracks show up. And it's been an interesting look at this defense, because yes, they've been dominant, and you love the things that the DNs have done. You love some of the stuff that the D tackles have done, even though the numbers haven't been there. But I'm looking right up the middle at those two guys in the middle, those two linebackers and those two safeties, and that's going to be something they have to press on and be better with, I think. And I hate to take the offensive approach of, hey, they scored 52 points, and they weren't as good as you think they were. But I think that there's a lot to clean up there, and they got 2 weeks to do it, thankfully.
Yeah. It was interesting. I actually saw a good bit of schematic diversity that we didn't see in the first two games. Watching them against Villanova, and if I can't get into all of that today because it's all very technical, and I could describe things to you, and that would be very boring, especially for our podcast audience. So you can check it out at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Join for $1, get full access to the Athletic for a year, and you can check out my film study. Of course, Nate and Fitz's written work over there about what they saw from the game, their instant reactions. Nate wrote about the offense, what we have and haven't seen so far. A lot of really good post-game discussion over on the message board as well. A lot of also maybe not as productive post-game discussion on the message board, which we can all talk about here. And I guess let's transition then into the offense. And Logan wants to ask this question. He says, starting the bye week off with appreciation for all your hard work. Curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think Andy Kotelnicki is the right offensive coordinator for Drew Aller? This is brought up, he says, never thought about it until Landon brought up on his podcast. So this is now a conversation about not just what's wrong with the offense, but is Andy Kotelnicki the right guy for Drew Aller? So that's kind of setting the stage for our conversation for Penn State Villanova on the offensive side of the ball. So Logan, we're going to answer this in part now. I have some thoughts about this. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's talk about just the performance there from the offense. Nate, what did you make of that, of what James Franklin has talked about not being able to find their rhythm? What did you think of their performance against Villanova, and what you think the issues with rhythm are in the offense?
I thought that there were isolated incidents that, or miscues, whatever, just lack of execution across the board. Like, it's always the same thing, right? Like, it's never what it seems like, which is when you're watching, it's like, well, third downs were a problem. Yes, they were. Right, drive stalling in the red zone or right on Villanova's side of the field. Sure. But if you really narrow it down, it's a false start that puts them in 1st and 15. It's a drop pass. It's right there. There's these singular events that throw them off rhythm, and they have had a hard time, I think, speaking broadly this season, overcoming those original sins. Like that's the issue that I see,
which feels a little concerning for a veteran team that, a false start can be a drive killer.
Everyone has that issue.
I don't think it's
that's a football thing.
And we had the same conversation in 2024 too. So like that's not. Sure. I don't think it's anything. I mean, it's just a stop making dumb mistakes, as simple as it can be. Dragging the knuckles here. But yeah, I think it's something that a lot of schools deal with, and a lot of coaches maybe over coach around it, if that makes sense. You hear the emphasis on down and distance, and it's absolutely necessary. And people hate hearing that because it's not an acceptable excuse if they'll say that, so I think that's what goes into it. But yeah, I think this is a college football thing more than a Penn State thing, but it is certainly a Penn State thing. Like Penn State is not immune from that.
I think that's fair. When it comes to I guess, where do you want to go with this then? I want to get your thoughts here on the game then.
They got points though. Like they're continuing to get points out of possessions, right? They're scoring on. I ran the numbers. I don't have it in front of me. 70% of 70% of the times that they have possession, they're scoring points. I think that's pretty good. Like on the whole, bad interception. Yes. Right. Again, like these isolated instances where they're not as sharp as they might need to be. Look, can I just address the Andy Kotelnicki question with Drew Aller just real quick?
Sure.
Do you need an offensive coordinator for Drew Aller, or do you need one for Penn State? because they're different things. This team is built to succeed across the board with a curated selection of players that include what I think so far has been a fairly strong offensive line. Like they have taken strides over the last few weeks. Nick Singleton needs a home run. Absolutely. He needs a home run. But if you take away, and this is like Katron earned that 67-yard carry. That happened with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Right? Against an outmatched, worn-down team. Katron has been really good. Nick has not been where he needs to be. But Nick's averaging 4.5 yards a carry. Right? Katron's averaging 8, and if you take away the 67, it's 6.5. Like, it's such a small sample size. I just think the way they operate and the way they have performed so far this season, is not to where they want it to be, but also the question that's being asked is the wrong question, right? It's not about unlocking Drew. It's just not. It just the same way that the defense, as you pointed out, is not about unlocking Zane, right? Like it is about, can you have team success with the players that you've assembled? And there are strengths in this offense outside of Drew. Drew has always been, and like it sounds like a curse word when you say it, but a game manager. That's what he does. He is the epitome of that. He is excellent at being that, right? Yes. That's why Penn State should be concerned by the interception that he just had, because it was a bad interception. That was an ungame manager like interception to throw. Right. Yeah. But on the
Can
whole,
I talk about that?
Ahead.
And not to, so I found that play interesting. James Franklin said there was a bust on that play, a mental bust on that play. So it's a play action power where you're pulling your left guard to the right, which means that the play fake should also be going that way. And then you have Katron Allen drifting out immediately into the flat. His defender is mirroring him. So if let's just imagine he follows the play fake correctly and he buzzes outside, or he's supposed to stay inside. That linebacker is not supposed to be in the flat in that particular situation. I'm not excusing him throwing it blindly, but I am saying, like, that's why that player was there, and Aller did not anticipate that player being there, because from the very beginning, it was kind of like a bee to a flower. Like, it was that player was being drawn to that spot because Katron Allen had made a mistake with his assignment. And so it's an explanation, and Aller should not have thrown that football because, yes, I think he did kind of panic in that situation of all the pieces weren't where they were supposed to be, and his instinct is then just dump it down, move on to the next play, and he didn't actually look to see what was going on. So those are the mistakes that are happening I guess that's my point. With a veteran team, if mistakes like that are happening, where a guy's making a mental mistake like that, and you are not as sharp as you need to be, I think it is fair to be frustrated by that if these guys are all seniors and they're making mistakes in the second year of an offense in some of these situations. So that speaks to, I think a global thing talking about this offense of not finding its rhythm or not being sharp through the first 3 games of the season, if stuff like that is happening.
Are you saying fans being frustrated by it, or the players themselves being frustrated by it?
I think the players themselves being frustrated by it is a fair response. The overreaction of fans being frustrated by it and then extrapolating towards this team will not be good and never win another game, and I'm taking that to the hyperbole, obviously, to prove a point, is the part where the disconnect is happening, right? Because I do think that they're not as sharp as they want to be. They acknowledge that. And so that is, I guess, to me, a surprise, this non-conference season, Fitz. When it comes to the game itself against Villanova, all the X's and O's, this is the problem I'm having with this, Fitz. The X's and O's matter, right? So I can tell you that on 15 passing plays, Drew Aller saw drop 8 coverage, meaning an extra coverage defender, and Villanova was taking away primary targets on his first read, which means he has to go to somewhere else, and with extra coverage defenders, you can allocate resources to other parts of the field that previous teams have not. So I can tell you there were not as many open players on those plays as normal. And then the answer is, it's Villanova. I don't care. So I don't know, like, you know, I don't know how to have a conversation about this game, given that conversation about Drew Aller, when, you know, unfortunately, you can't see the safeties and you can't see the receivers that are off screen to see there aren't the open receivers that are just running far afield and Drew isn't seeing the field. These are not accurate statements of the problem. I think there are other problems, which we can get to, but like the conversation, the thesis from everybody feels to me like that's not where we need to be starting, but it's the one that everyone takes because they don't care. It's Villanova. It's an FCS team. Well, how did you view all this?
I mean, first off, if you try to understand it, it makes more sense. It's running against numbers. It's the stuff that you see when you've got a receiver screen and you've got 3 blockers versus 2. You know, that those are the kind of numbers that the coaches are seeing, and that's what kind of the opposite on the back end. So you just went through Ethan Grunkmeyer's read on his pick that got overturned, rightfully so, but it got overturned. Liam Clifford broke open from his guy that supposedly was guarding him. Well, it was his own. He ran his post into 2 other defenders because that was the drop 8. That's where those guys were coming from. And he threw the ball and was ill-advised eventually. You know, it proved to be ill-advised. And it's just a numbers thing. And no matter the talent, I mean, these are Division I guys out there, but no matter the talent, you're not going to win the numbers game over the grand scheme of 60 minutes, especially if it's against a team like Oregon. So yes, you're seeing some of that. But I think the root of what you're seeing is the overcomplicated nature of what they've been doing and how that reflects on Drew Aller, seeing the field, how that reflects on him. Because I think like I said on the board yesterday, the easy go-to here is that Drew locks on his first receiver and throws to his first receiver. And that's the kind of the opposite of what's happening, is that I think he's getting through these progressions too quickly. You saw Kyron Hudson running very, very open on a play that he eventually went to his left to Khalil Dinkins, who stepped out of bounds, caught the ball, and, you know, eventually that was overturned, rightfully so as well. So he is getting off of those reads so quickly that it's really not it's not looking like it's looking like he's ignoring wide open receivers, right? He is not a good anticipator, and we've known that for a while.
Yeah.
When that guy is going to come open, you've already passed him up. That's a problem right there. That's the thing that needs addressed by Danny O'Brien, Trace McSorley, Andy Kotelnicki as well. So I think that go ahead, because I know you looked at this pretty closely over the weekend.
The other half of it is just like let's take this situation, because it does, I think, speak to a larger thing of Drew Aller, what you just talked about, of trying to play too fast, which he's acknowledged before. Like, he's acknowledged that I go through my progressions too quickly because I want to get to the right answer if I feel like the first read isn't open, instead of letting it develop. And if you're playing drop 8, that means you only have 3 pass rushers, which means you have an eternity.
Right.
He could have sat on a couple of those plays. He could have sat there for 10 full seconds. And I'm, again, a little bit of hyperbole here. He could have sat there for much longer and felt no internal pressure. But he is so scheduled of bam, 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 1, 2, 3. I got to go through my reads. I got to get rid of the ball so I don't take a sack, so I don't take a negative play. That there is that kind of, I don't want to say mechanical or any of those things, you know, to an extreme, but there is a certain aspect of the situational awareness to realize I got 3 rushers. The point of this defense is I need to give my receivers time to find the open spaces in the zones. And that's a great example of, you know, the Kyron Hudson route is a clear out route. Like, in a normal situation, he's taking a safety away from the main read, which was the tight end going up the middle, like going down the middle of the defense with inside leverage on the safety, because it was a mistake by the Villanova defense, but Hudson did have a player coming underneath that route later. Now, if you throw it into the end zone, you lead him. Either of those guys were open for a touchdown, but the actual read on that play was Luke Reynolds down the middle with inside leverage on the safety.
Right.
And those are the situations where he's playing too fast, and playing too fast when he doesn't need to. And so I think these are part of the conversation.
You can compound the playing too fast with the overthinking. I think they're the same thing in this situation. You know, that was the big thing coming out of FIU, was that Drew was overthinking. And I think that both of those things have kind of come down. I listen to it was not important what I listened to, but it was a wrestling podcast, and they talked about new guys getting into the ring for the first time, pro wrestling, not actual wrestling. But the instruction there is to go as slow as you can, and then when you think you have gotten slow enough, go slower. And I think that's what you're looking at with Drew, is some of this stuff is just flying right by, and of course, hey, you got guys trying to take your head off. I get it, but you're not allowing yourself to find what is there because you've already passed it up, and that goes to I would say overcomplicated nature of all this, especially when a lot of those throws are long throws. Like you're asking a wide receiver to run a 15-yard out. Well, that takes time, especially with this receiver group, which doesn't have great speed. Like it's not a group that is going to torch secondaries, but if you can run the right routes and you can run them precisely, which is also a criticism I have of some of those over the weekend, then you can make that work. But it's got to have time to set up, and that's not necessarily a pass protection thing. That is everybody on the same page type thing. And I think that's the struggle that we've seen in the first couple of weeks with Drew, is that those guys are still working through that, and you've got unexpected physical challenges with, we saw Kyron Hudson getting knocked off the ball. He's not supposed to be the guy that gets knocked off the line of scrimmage. He's not supposed to be that guy. So I think you're seeing a lot of that in the disruption of timing, which leads to, he's not there where he needs to be yet, so I'm going to move off of him. And again, going back to the Grunkmeyer interception, the overturned interception, like Kobe Howard, yes, he was open, but like that's not the immediate read. When he sees Clifford coming open, that's where he rips it. And that is kind of the stuff you got to work through in film. And the big question coming out of this that we get from a lot of fans, is it correctable? And I don't know that all of it is. I think some of it is, in terms of seeing that stuff on film, making those corrections and making the changes but Drew's innate ability to anticipate and eventually get the guy that is going to be open is still left in question. I don't know if that's fixable right now.
JC asks, serious question, has Penn State just faced gimmicky defenses so far? They're not going to see a team like Villanova that's going to play drop 8. Like that, they are not going to see that. I would also say they've seen 3 teams that have the exact same plan that is just play cover 3, play a bunch of players in the box, and keep everything in front of you. So as much as Alan Saunders wants to say it doesn't matter, you have to beat these guys no matter what, that is not what Penn State has. They don't have that number 1 wide receiver that just gets open. And I guess the point that we're making, and Fitz, I think you've made pretty eloquently, is that Drew's progression going too fast is eliminating some of those down the field threats, between the numbers especially, like down the hashes, that would be getting these explosive plays and making you feel the way you want to about this particular game. That's a big part of, to me, like, the progression I had hoped to see from him from his junior to senior season is making some of these NFL level throws into tight windows, down, and anticipating where a window is going to come open. So in that game against Villanova, what they were giving him, he wasn't taking in those situations. The run game. Nate, I need to get you in here. What is your general sense of how the run game is performing and the offensive line through, like, in this game against Villanova? Because there is, again, when the running back doesn't get 200 yards, it's the offensive line's fault. And, I'm struggling to, again, have a good conversation about what we see from what was on film and the reasons for what happened to, like, everyone's perception. Like, I am so not set up to have a good conversation about this today because, like, it's not about what happened on the film. It's not about the 11 players against the other 11 players. It's Penn State and the logo and the brand against Villanova, the logo and the brand. And, like, the players on the field don't care about those things. They don't. I had somebody say, like, Penn State is going to win 10 games because they're Penn State. Like, that's not how football works. Like, you don't just get an extra player on the field because you're Penn State. So I guess, Nate, what do you make of the offensive run game performance against Villanova? Because we haven't really discussed that as much either.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm not sure at what point we lost sight of the conversation that we've been having for ever forever, it's been Nick Singleton hits home runs. How does he do it? Right? By making a man miss. What does he not do? Make a man miss. Right? Like the whole idea is he's only ever hit home runs by being in space and by outrunning people. Right? That, like, everyone has said this. James Franklin has said it. We have said it. Right? Like, that is how he did those things in his career. His Rose Bowl run was not Saquon's run. It just wasn't. It's different. It's when you clear out and he just runs faster than everybody else. What were the improvements? Like the Stan Drayton conversation all offseason was he's going to unlock that. He's going to unlock that piece of Nick. Okay, it hasn't happened yet. Nick is trying to do that. What is Nick actually in reality? He is a knock your ass over running back who does it repeatedly. He is violent. He is aggressive. He is strong. That's what he does. And like the perception of him, right, does not match what the reality of him has ever been, which is like Katron has this reputation of being that, when in reality, Katron is more shifty, right, than Nick.
Yeah.
Right? Katron was always the bruiser. No, Nick is the bruiser. Nick is the, right, like, of the two in terms of
he is a hammer.
Best.
The world is a nail. That is how he views all of these interactions.
And you
at least as far as I can tell.
Like it. It's fine for everyone to not like that. If that's not your guy, like, that's okay. That's all right. But Penn State has made a living off of getting into third and short, second and short situations by running people over.
Yeah.
Right? Also
quickly
being used in the passing game. But like Katron has had, you can see in Katron the development that he has made, the steps that he has taken physically this offseason, and how that has combined to unlock for him more of the 15 to 20 yard runs, right? He has done much better with that because he is able to use speed that he did not have previously to pick up those runs. That's it. I'm done. I've totally lost my train of thought in the show, so I have to apologize for that. But I do need to remind everybody, today's show is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find grills, canopies, jerseys, and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, and undefeatable prices every day. Be sure to check out your Harrisburg and York locations. Fun can't lose, and neither can you with tailgate gear from Academy. Fitz, I got a chance to experience a Friday afternoon with you guys at Antifragile. Wow, was it? It lived up to the hype. I was everything you guys had talked about Antifragile. So talk to me about Antifragile.
It did. We went there actually twice this weekend. I promised Nate, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, that we were going to get down there. So had to double up and get down there twice. We went golfing on Friday morning, then made our way in for a cheesesteak. And, well, I had a cheesesteak. Nate's watching his figure here. But cheesesteak and some beers. It was a good time. A lot of Penn State fans, walking around, mingling, talking, and all that kind of stuff. And then Nate and I went back on Saturday night after the game. He's like, let's go to Antifragile. I was like, I got to go home. I got to, do this. Okay, let's go to Antifragile. So we went and we people watched. It was really great. We watched the end of the Notre Dame game, which was really great. I mean, that was a fun atmosphere. They got the projector up there, so you can watch on either side of the brewery, and it was a pretty terrific experience with some of our new friends there. But do recommend you check out Antifragile Brewing on East Calder Way if you're in town for a football weekend, or if you're just in town for a nice little stroll through the old main lawn there. Just stop by and get the best beer in State College, get a cheesesteak, talk to some people. There's wonderful people watching opportunities there, especially around John's, the cheesesteak place outside. It's become its own bar, basically. We were out there, it was like 9, 10 o'clock. It was probably closer to 10 o'clock. on Saturday night, and that place was bumping. I mean, there were people out there just kind of lined up 3 or 4 deep, and it's really embarrassing for me to say bumping. I know that look, Nate, but 3 or 4 deep, waiting for cheesesteaks. Everybody talking to the people working. The people working are fantastic. They will have a conversation with you about anything, basically, and it's a pretty cool scene down there. So definitely check it out. We appreciate their support, and we appreciate their beer, and we absolutely would be patrons if they were not supporting us, but we're thankful that they are.
Absolutely. Go check them out. And by the way, when you're there, let them know you came from the BWI Live podcast. So I'm having a hard time, and I'll just admit, I don't know that I did my best work in the last 36 minutes because I really wanted to talk about Villanova and what Villanova was, but to me, the story is this non-conference season and Penn State's approach to it, and the common themes I've found when looking at how Penn State has played, especially the last 2 games against FIU and Villanova. So having this in a broader context of a conversation, I think might be more helpful and fruitful for me to be involved. You guys have been locking it down and doing a great job of explaining, hey, the game against Villanova was what it was. But to me, I am seeing some definite trends with how this team worked through the first 3 games. And I guess I want to get Fitz, because Nate, I think, is replying to somebody. How much do you believe, or how much have you seen Penn State working on things, as James Franklin has alluded to, working on the passing game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, instead of trying to go out there and blitz the first 3 teams to put up 300 points in 3 games? How much validity do you see to that, and how much of that do you think is kind of a retroactive conversation?
I mean, it's not retroactive. We were saying it throughout the whole thing. Can I just credit Rob here real quick? Because it was something I wanted to talk about with Nick Singleton, and we got it out of it really quickly. He said earlier that we overlook a lot of Nick's 8-yard runs because we think they should be 18 or 28 instead. And I think that kind of hits the nail on the head. He's had some pretty good gains in the 5 to 9 yard type range. And because of his reputation, because of his athletic gifts, really, he definitely is still athletic. He's still fast and everything like that. Because of that, those things not going for bigger chunks, number one, is a disappointment to fans, but also, exactly right. He should be figuring out ways to get those chunks. And we thought with the move to Stan Drayton that he would. Yeah. He hasn't done that. He's sought out contact. His vision's not great. I mean, we've seen this, or we've said this multiple times. Katron's vision is far superior there. But he's been fairly productive, but the expectations, I think, have caught up with him. And I think that's certainly something worth noting with Singleton. And that's probably what's frustrating. And it's so not funny, but it's so interesting to look at his body of work. And yes, he is the hammer, just hammering away, trying to go seek out contact and all that stuff. And his problem is when somebody gets him by the legs, he's down. I mean, he is, his center of gravity is completely off. He runs he's hunched over. He goes, he topples pretty easily. And that's a different conversation than I'm going to go find a safety. I'm going to lower my shoulder into him. So I think that's just very different watching Nick and watching what he could be versus what he is. And that the frustration's there probably for Nick as well. But the frustration's there. And I think it's justified for Penn State fans because he does present 2 different outcomes. And it's just remarkably black and white there. That said, getting back into what you were asking me, he had 4 catches against Villanova. He's had 2 targets since. And I think that is a spot where you need to open him up. What's the best way to, have him avoid tacklers is to get him in space in the passing game. And I think that they force-fed him this weekend 20 carries, too many, 20 carries, but to get that jump started, and I don't think it worked. I don't think it happened. And you saw at the end of the game, he was the same guy that he was at the start of the game. So maybe they were hoping some muscle memory kicks in or something like that. Yeah. But I think that bringing the passing game into it, I think is going to make a difference. He was effective. I think 4 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown last year against Oregon in the Big Ten title game. So that's on film. They know it is there. But I think we're going to see that more moving forward. And I think that is something that can help everyone out, especially Nick. Just get him a little more. It's always a cop out to say get this guy in space because that means he's not doing stuff. That means he's not doing stuff that he needs to do. When he's making those cuts. The highlight against was that Nevada or FIU where he had the blockers on the outside, cut it straight up into his blockers. Yeah, that's an issue. But I think that what you're looking at with Nick is so much just he needs to simplify what he's doing. And I think the passing game can really go a long way in doing that.
Nate, speaking of the passing game,
can we read Katron's run log?
Sure.
6, 5, 4, 12, 4, 3. That was in the second and the third quarter. He came back in the fourth quarter. What happened to Villanova in the fourth quarter?
It broke down.
What happened?
Were they good?
No.
Fourth quarter, 9, 16, 18. All of this has been we've had this conversation over and over and over about who this team is. And then they're exactly the same team, right? They become the team that they've talked about, that we've talked about all off season. And everyone's like, I don't like the way that looks. I don't like the way you play football. Wear people down, win the game. That is what they are doing. I don't understand this sense of disbelief that Penn State doesn't have some dynamic, high-flying offense. It's unfathomable to me that we have to continue to have this conversation.
I want to jump in here, Nate, because I do believe that this part of the non-conference season, they have been trying to incorporate more of that explosive element through the passing game. So first off, we talk about lack of rhythm. So let me just go through some of the third downs that they faced in the game against Villanova and what led to the third down. False start. This is the first third down of the game where 3rd and 10. Blown up screen pass to Katron Allen that did not work. False start on first down. Then a shot play on 1st and 15 where they threw downfield to Devontae Ross. Later on in the game, false start by Venga Ioane. 1st and 15 shot play. 3rd and 6, he throws an out route to Traber Pena. So James Franklin is saying third down is not working for us. Penn State is not a team that has historically put themselves in 3rd and long because they're throwing shot plays down the field at early down and distances. So I do think that there is an element of, in the first 3 games, especially against FIU and last week against Villanova, they were trying to incorporate more deep passes for a couple of reasons. So what I was workshopping here in this morning, last year, Penn State's deep passing game primarily revolved around when they saw particular looks, they would put Amari Evans in the slot, they would run him on a post route for a touchdown. You could count on it like clockwork. Once a game, once a quarter, however often it was. One thing they have struggled with is when you present that bend but don't break shell of 3 people over the top and then 5 people underneath, and you take away the tight ends, you add hat to the running game, all that stuff. Throwing people out of that last year did not work for Penn State. Now, this year, Drew Aller's deep passing attempts. Let me bring this up for you, and this is what I was excited about, what I found. Against cover 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7 of his 9 attempts have been against cover 3. Even if you go back and look at last year, where did he struggle of throwing down the field? Against that coverage family. So Penn State is trying, I think, to work on this for him and for the offense to allow Nick Singleton more yards to run and trying to take advantage of what the defense is giving them. And it has been a struggle. And that has been an area where if you want to say that Drew Aller and this offense are not finding rhythm, they're putting themselves in the position to do a thing that they know they weren't good at last year and trying to get good at it in this non-conference season. Those are the direct numbers. I'm not guessing on that. That is the output that I've seen on film verified by the tape. And the numbers aren't good. They've completed 1 pass on deep plays, and it was against cover 2 in the first game. So there is a struggle here, and I apologize. No, they've completed 2. One of them was to Devontae Ross. So, the percentages here aren't great. when you're looking at what they're trying to work on. And going back to the question of, are they facing gimmicky offenses? These defenses are running the same thing. They're playing cover 3, and Penn State's trying to work on that element of the game because they will see that later in the year. Now, here's a question. Does Oregon run cover 3? No. Oregon thinks they're going to stop Penn State's running game with 4 defenders in the line of scrimmage. So will they see a more diverse and robust coverage family in the future? They absolutely will. So a lot of this is case-by-case scenario, and there is a formula for these non-conference teams of how they want to defend Penn State. Make them beat their head against a wall, and then keep everything in front of you and make Drew Aller throw the throws he doesn't necessarily like. Those vertical leads down the field where he doesn't have he's not able to throw the ball away from the corner or the safety. He has to throw it vertically, and there has to be a trust with the receiver that they're going to catch the ball if it's a contested catch situation, and Penn State is working through that. Now, that is not me defending Drew Aller. I am pointing to you his biggest weakness as a deep ball thrower. And that's something that may come up later, but if you're saying what's wrong with Penn State's rhythm, what's wrong with Penn State's passing attack, this is what they're working on. That is what they're working on. And to me, I want to give them credit for trying that. Now, the outcome is, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out the rest of the year. But it is this concept of, are they working on stuff? What are they working on? And how do they go about making themselves a more complete team? And for anyone that wants to say Drew Aller, a senior quarterback, should be better at this, I kind of agree. This is a thing that I think is a fair thing to say about where Drew Aller is as a senior. So that was my theory. That was my thought. I want to also address, if you don't mind, I'm going to go on another one of T. Frank's tangents. The point about the offense fitting Aller. We've had this conversation since Andy Kotelnicki was hired. I asked, there's a 10% part of this offense that relies upon read option and the stress it puts on the defense to create explosive plays in that gray area between passing and the run game. And last year, they bridged that gap with Tyler Warren and with Bo Prabula. Now, in the non-conference, they haven't bridged that gap. They just haven't. They've elected not to do it in any way, shape, or form. Some of the things you're seeing are performative option plays. Are they performative against Iowa or Oregon or Northwestern? Don't know yet. But I spent all offseason here Andy Kotelnicki oogling Drew Aller's physique. And you're telling me that was for no reason whatsoever? We're looking at these things and trying to build a consensus of what is going on in the offense. And I just think that for the first time ever, I do believe there are certain things they're not using. Fitz, you've talked about this, of they don't want him getting hit for no reason. Most of the times he's been hit, he's been scrambling. They have not had him run the football this year. So I guess I don't know how to have the conversation other than we need more information. And there is always the truth of, there are parts that don't fit Drew Aller, but every offense has sections of the playbook you can lean on and go away from. And I think that right now they are going away from the option, but we don't know that they're going to go away from the option completely and that Aller's never going to run it. So those are my thoughts. No injuries, Fitz. That's a big deal, right?
It is. Number one, oogling
respond to anything you want, by the way. I just didn't know how to end that.
No, I mean, I think it's pretty clear looking at the first 3 games. Drew ran, I don't have the numbers in front of me, 6 times against Nevada. He took some shots. 2 days later, James Franklin said he shouldn't be taking those shots. And then guess what? He didn't run at all, design runs or anything. He took 2 sacks against FIU. Those are classified as run attempts. And then he had, I think, 2 scrambles and a self pass. And then he took some hits against Villanova over the weekend. So I think it was pretty clear. Penn State pulled that one back. Said, hey, we don't need you to do this. We'll figure this out during the bye week. We'll figure this out when Oregon gets here. I don't know that it's the absolute best, because those hits, as gruesome as they look sometime, get you into a flow, get you into a feel. And, if you go a couple of weeks without one, which he really hasn't, but if you go a couple of weeks without one, you sort of get distant from that, if you will. So I think that the running game does come back a little bit. I'm not saying Drew's going to run the ball 10 times, but He's going to have the option to do so, and it's going to freeze somebody for a split second and makes a difference. I mean, let's look at this offense, the fundamental difference that Drew running the ball could make, and like not being Bo, like not being like, just get that out now. Going back to the original question about is he a better fit? Yeah, Bo's a better fit for this offense. We said that before the 2024 season. Like it's clear what Andy Kotelnicki has done in his past relies on an athletic quarterback. And Drew has gotten, I don't want to say gotten more athletic, but he's gotten to be more of a runner in the last year and a half. And then they went away from it because they didn't want their quarterback hurt. I think that makes sense. But you get him running, you get Drew, or you get Nick Singleton in the passing game, it opens up a little bit. Now, that's not going to cure everything that has been an issue so far, as you mentioned. Like there's been, it's just been, you kind of expect it to be Forrest Gump when he runs out of the braces, you know, and just takes off. That's not what's happening here. And I think that's area for concern, is that you snapped your fingers. Okay, well, now you're punting against Villanova. Like that's not what you want. You just want to be able to take it and do what the fans want. And that's just run over the defense and then, you know, average 9 yards a carry or whatever. So I think that is the holdup that I've got, is that they haven't been able to flip the switch and just kind of go into that. Now, we saw at halftime of the FIU game, they did that a little bit, and they went from running a lot of the outside zone, running laterally, basically having a lateral running game, to a more vertical running game. And it was successful, and they did some really nice things there. So I just think that there's so much out there, and it's so, I've had this sort of tug of war over the last couple of weeks, is like, no, they're not hiding anything special from Oregon. Oregon knows that Drew can run a little bit. He's not going to kill you, but he can pick up first downs, which is exactly what you need. You know that Nick Singleton is a pretty good receiver when it comes to coming out of the backfield. So yes, they're shelving that. It's not hiding it, it's shelving that. And then they're running a ton of different looks. Sequencing seems to be off. Spacing seems to be off. You mentioned earlier about finding the spot in the zone. I think Luke Reynolds kind of settled into that and kind of learned it on the fly, because there's only so much you can do in practice. When you do it against live bullets, even against a team like Villanova, you find the spaces on the field. And I think he found his way and felt his way into getting that. So I think that's the sort of evolution that you're looking for this offense, is to how to take the things that they've put on the shelf. Again, not hiding anything from Oregon. Oregon knows what Penn State's going to do. Like they have a really good idea of what Penn State's going to do. But putting it back all together. And I thought we'd see a little bit more of that against Villanova. Just putting it all back together so that when you hit that ramp, you're ready to fly. You know, you're ready to go. I still have concerns about them being ready to go. It comes down to things like that. And also comes down to the sequencing of Drew. I mean, Drew looked pretty darn good to start the game. Started 5 of 6 here. And then he gets streaky. There was a time when he was 1 of 7. And then he came back and hit 4 straight. And then he threw the pick. And then after the pick, he hit 4 or 5. Like, he is so streaky. And that is what is just shooting them in the foot, is when it's bad, it's quite off. And it usually is followed by another bad pass. So when he's doing the 2-minute drill, and we talked to this about after the game, when he's doing the 2-minute drill, he's a different quarterback, and he's a wonderful.
Can I address that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that there's, first off, what you said there about being streaky, I think absolutely is a narrative in a game of when the defense adjusts to what you're doing, and they can start to take away the passes that you were relying on and feasting on in that first 5 of 6. And then the ability to adapt and adjust back to the adjustment is also important. Now, to the conversation about the 2-minute drill and how he operates that. When you're running 2-minute drill, James Franklin has talked about this. He's looking for what from the defense? Andy Kotelnicki, what do they want from the defense when they're running a 2-minute drill, no huddle, making everyone go fast?
To keep everybody on the field?
And yes, to keep everything the same and to get a basic call from the defense. So what happens in the 2-minute drill is Drew knows what to expect. I can't
believe I got that right. It's like a pop quiz I wasn't ready for. Go ahead.
So they're trying to get basic calls from the defense. When you are, even if you're running your drop 8 and they're flooding the boundary and taking away those comeback routes, Drew's throwing the same throw. He's throwing the deep out, he's throwing the speed out, and he's throwing the comeback against soft coverages. The cover 3, the quarters, he's throwing the safe passes to the sidelines. When you go fast and use tempo, they're not going to get in the perfect call to take away what they're expecting. you're going to get a slower reaction from that free extra player on the field. So when you run 2-minute drill, it's easier for the quarterback because the defense is easier. He knows how he can get back to those throws. And then in the second half, they adapt the plan and they go to play action to draw all those extra players into the line of scrimmage. So they are trying to do this, by the way, in the game. When they hit a play, then they go fast and they go tempo. That's what they're trying to do. Get a basic call and get a shot play or another passing play. Some of the problems there are structural in terms of when you do that, the other team knows you're going to do that, and they can have 2 calls ready too. So, like, Nate, I need to get you back in the conversation here. I just want you to...
I got so many questions. I have so many questions.
Respond.
You don't even have to ask me a question. I want to ask you a question. Hey,
Sure.
if you're a defensive coordinator of a team that knows it's going to lose, do you call it differently? Do you adjust to that? Do you try maybe to prevent yourself from being gouged and from being just like kind of repeatedly exposed on big plays?
Defensively, it's tough because those guys at that level are coaching a specific way because of the athletes that they have. Like you look at Villanova, Villanova had a nose tackle that looked like a, I don't want to say looked like a Big Ten nose tackle, but he looked like he had the size to play in the Big Ten. I don't know that he was great, but like he looked like he had that. They're playing I think Franklin said it last week, they're playing a 3-3 stack, which they did a lot of different things, but they're playing a 3-3 stack.
They did more 4 down than anybody anticipated at Penn State.
Yes.
Correct. But you're overcompensating for the athletes that you have. Now, offensively, I think that's a really good point. Like, I think that offensive coordinators, especially when you saw Nevada running the play clock down every play, Villanova did that quite a bit as well. You're shortening the game because you know you're going to lose. And I hate saying stuff like that, but yes, I think that's.
But it's
that's
the
more
only way to win together.
Right.
It's a team. It's a strategy.
Yes.
Right.
What Nate is saying is we're going to bend but don't break and hope we force field goals, and we're going to bleed the clock. So if we win, it's going to be 27-20 or 23-20, and we're not going to try some of the things we might do to win the game. We're actively playing defense, so hopefully Penn State makes enough mistakes we win. Okay. Is I think what you're characterizing.
Okay, moving on. I got more questions.
Pop quiz. Are you moving on from this because I got a point on top of that. No, I got a point on top of that. No. Yes.
What happens? Yes. What is Penn State? What is Penn State? Define the noun for Penn State or adjective if Drew Aller gets hurt in either of the first 3 games.
We can't say that.
Yes, I can. The word is cooked. Cooked. Done. Over. Right? Like, what are we talking about? Go ahead. Make your point.
I think that you look at Villanova, you look at these teams, and you look all over college football. You've got games where coaches are doing that, coaching to the result, really. And I think that when you take a look at big games, coaches all over the country, not just at Penn State, they clam up. They want to do less, which I think doing less for Penn State's offense could be really, really good for them.
Yeah, I think
but they want to do less. Texas, Ohio State just played a 14-7 game a couple weeks ago. Notre Dame and Texas A&M played a different kind of that game. Both defenses, I have questions. That's another story. But you're looking at big games, coached not to make mistakes. And again, that's not just a James Franklin thing. That's not a Penn State thing. You're looking at that. Now, I think one of the teams that has been better at that than most is Oregon, which Oregon will say, okay, we're just going to go out here and score. Like, we're going to go out here and do this kind of thing and do our stuff and run our stuff over and over again. And they've been pretty good at it, which is kind of concerning for me in a couple of weeks. But I think that everything is going to tighten up. Rotations, sequencing, spacing a little bit as well. Like, I think that there's a lot that goes into that.
James Franklin has said twice now, we're making things harder on ourselves than we need to. Is that part of what you think he's talking about? Because I haven't really been able to pin down exactly what he means when he says we're making things harder on ourselves than we need to, either on an execution level, on a plan for the game level. Like, I guess, where are you seeing that? Because I feel like that's what you were just saying there in terms of they won't make it as hard on themselves against Oregon because they're going to be doing things more tailored down into the big game look.
Yeah. Shrink the playbook. I mean, they do too much already. Like, even in games that are not against scrimmage type opponents that we've seen in the first couple of weeks. They do too much. And I think, yes, sir, you in the blue.
Are they actually doing too much, or are they putting a ton of window dressing on the same stuff?
It's the same stuff. It's the same thing, right? Doing too much, adding, you run the same plays out.
It's an illusion. It's the same magic trick. The magic trick is the same. At the end of the day, they're still running the same things.
You want more pre-snap motion, is what you're saying.
Yes, I'm just saying, like, they do a lot of stuff to give different looks to defenses to distract them. Right? That's Andy Kotelnicki's thing. That's what he does. But I don't think at the end of the day, Penn State's offensive players in execution are being asked to do 500 million different things.
So I believe, Fitz, if I may, 6 offensive lineman sets, followed by 3 tight end sets, followed by running a screen into the boundary with Venga Ioane and Drew Shelton out there. Even if these are the same plays, like putting players in positions they're unfamiliar with or uncomfortable with is a lot of doing too much. Now, in this past game, they did not do that, but in the totality of Andy Kotelnicki's offense, I would say that, like, there is a balancing act between the two things, what we're just describing. Because, Nate, you're absolutely 100% right about, like, it's the same passing plays run from different formations with different players. And Fitz, like, it's dizzying sometimes to find out, like, who's lining up where and why. What is the point of this?
That is the last question is the best question, right? Why? Like, what benefit do they do from Venga coming in motion? Like, and usually it's setting something else up for later, and you just wonder when that's coming, because it hasn't come yet. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like I said, it goes back to Nate's point a couple weeks ago, which just it was the simplest, dumbest thing, and it was brilliant, because it's like, yeah, they don't have enough plays. Okay. They don't have enough plays to do everything that they want to do with every player that they want to do it with, which is why, the RB3 conversation has disappeared, because they haven't used an RB3 because they haven't scored enough points to get them out. It's all that stuff that sort of connects. And I just think that when you hit the ground September 27th, you've got to narrow that focus down, not just for your quarterback, but for your receivers. And you're tailoring this, and you're carving out an identity as a team that's going to move the ball, even though you say you want explosive plays, even though you say you want long time. Hey, I would love a 70-yard touchdown at some point too. But even though you say that, you're a team that's holding the ball and trying to get first downs after first downs after first downs. They're struggling with it right now, especially on 3rd and 7 and beyond. But I think that's kind of how they've carved out that identity. And that's kind of the frustration here, right? Is like, you're just like holding that chain, and you think it's about to break, but it still hasn't broken, right?
Nate, final thoughts here, and then I'm going to clean up some things to end the show, and then we're going to get out of here. This has been very productive, I think, on a show level. So, Nate, give us your final thoughts.
I don't have any, because I need to see who and what they are against Oregon. And then after that, because I think this is equally important, more important, is who are they against the mucky middle of the Big Ten? Because it doesn't matter. They can lose Oregon. They can lose Ohio State. They got to beat everybody else. If they beat everybody else, they're fine. They're in the playoff. If they don't, they're out. And then maybe you went like maybe they're a team that beats the best teams. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like maybe that is who this team is. I don't know. None of us do. We're not going to find out until they play Oregon and Ohio State. But what we really need to find out is, are they the team that they were last year that beat everybody else and did so fairly convincingly, right? Outside of Minnesota and Southern Cal, they won a lot of those games pretty comfortably.
So I want to play off that. To my final thought here is that the tension from fans right now is that they want to know right now whether or not that's the case. They want to know, Drew Aller, is he the guy that's going to beat Oregon? And to Nate's point, and I think that there is fair evidence that I've tried to lay out here over the last couple of weeks, that they are doing things out of character that they won't do later. Drew Aller's not going to be chucking bombs against cover 3. He's going to be finding those deep digs that he found last year in the games that matter. That's my interpretation of these things. But nobody cares that you're right about the quarterback. Like, if you want to say Drew Aller isn't the guy right now, nobody ultimately, like, sitting here, Fitz, Nate, how many people care if we're right or not? Like, everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants to know before it happens whether or not they're going to be right. The quarterback is the quarterback. Like, this is the team. And so Penn State's trying to find a way to win with the players that they have. And so, like, if you're out here saying Drew isn't the guy, I told you so, congratulations, you may be right. But, like, what does that do for the discourse? What does that do for any of us, really, having this conversation about Penn State football?
It's a no-lose proposition if you're a Penn State fan to pound the drum and say that Drew Aller stinks. Because if he stinks and you're right, you get to pound your chest. If you're wrong and he wins, your favorite football team won the game.
And no one will remember you were wrong.
And no one cares about either.
No one cares. Right.
The movie is happening currently. You're in the middle of the movie. And yes, you can look at it. It's unscripted. You can look and try to see what happens at the end, but you don't know because it has to happen. It's currently being filmed.
So we're going to get out of here, but there's a lot going on in the chat. I just want to get to some of these people. Like, people love the fire from Nate today. I mean, we got some people to donate to the channel. They thoroughly enjoyed the discourse. I think we had a good conversation about this. Just want to read some of these out here. C. Paul King says, yes, improvement is needed. However, I think we'll see this team on a different level versus Oregon. Don't forget the magic of the whiteout as well. Stephen Light says, just because. So yeah, appreciate everybody. Logan Carpenter putting his money where his mouth is, who started this conversation. $50, man. Thank you. Like, good to be you. And Larry, by the way, here wants to point out Oregon isn't perfect. They gave up nearly 200 yards to Northwestern. They struggle to stop teams consistently, especially against the run. They are not untouchable. He also has some comments about the RPO and the read option. And my last PSA here, as we get out of here, guys, is I just want to say one more time, this is not an RPO offense. RPO means run pass option, meaning you can throw the ball on a run play. A read option, which I think is what you're thinking of when we talk about Drew Aller running the ball, a read option offense is where the quarterback has the opportunity to keep the ball and run it in a certain situation. They run both of those things, but this is primarily a discussion about the read option. And no one will remember that either, Nate, because that's a conversation I've been having for 5 years, and we'll have it for another 5 on this show. So we'll be back tomorrow. Practices tonight. James Franklin speaks. We'll get you all those conversations and insights later on the BWI Live Show with myself and Greg tomorrow. So for Fitz, for Nate, for myself, talk to you later.